The first ship appeared on a Tuesday morning at 0347 GMT, materializing in Earth's orbit like a dark smudge against the star field. Dr. Sarah Chen was the first to spot it during her routine scan at the Arecibo Observatory Replacement Facility in Puerto Rico. The massive vessel, roughly the size of Manhattan, hung motionless 36,000 kilometers above the equator. Within minutes, her readings were confirmed by observatories across 6 continents. The object wasn't reflecting sunlight properly. Its surface seemed to absorb electromagnetic radiation in ways that defied known physics. Sarah's hands trembled as she reached for the secure communication line to NASA headquarters. Before she could complete the call, 2 more ships materialized, then 5 more, then dozens. By sunrise Eastern Standard Time, 473 alien vessels had taken positions around Earth in a perfect geodesic pattern. Each ship was unique in design, some crystalline and angular, others flowing like liquid metal frozen in time, and a few that seemed to shift and change shape when observed directly. The world's governments moved with surprising coordination. Emergency sessions convened simultaneously in Washington, Beijing, Moscow, and Geneva. Military installations worldwide went to DEFCON 2. Satellite communications buzzed with encrypted transmissions as humanity's leaders grappled with the reality that they were no longer alone. President Martinez addressed the world at noon, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding behind the scenes. "Citizens of Earth," she began, "we stand at a pivotal moment in human history. We are not alone, and we must face this challenge together as one species." But the aliens weren't responding to any attempts at communication. Radio signals, laser pulses, mathematical sequences, everything humanity transmitted into space was met with silence. The ships simply waited, their dark hulls reflecting nothing, revealing nothing. Dr. James Okafor, Earth's leading xenobiologist, despite having never expected to study actual aliens, was summoned to an emergency think tank at CERN. As his plane crossed over European airspace, he watched through the window as people gathered in streets and squares, pointing at the sky where some of the larger ships were visible even in daylight. "They're not here to talk," he told the assembled scientists 12 hours later. "They're studying us. Look at their positioning. Perfect observation points covering every major population center, military installation, and communications hub. They're not invading, they're cataloging." The revelation sent chills through the scientific community. Humanity was being observed like bacteria under a microscope. On the streets of Tokyo, Kenji Tanaka watched the news coverage while serving ramen to increasingly anxious customers. The alien ships had been visible all day, hanging like dark storm clouds that never moved. Some people had stopped coming to work, others couldn't stop staring at the sky. But Kenji noticed something else, something the news wasn't reporting yet. "They're not scanning our cities," he murmured to his assistant, Yuki. "Look at the live feeds. Every shot shows the ships pointed toward the rural areas, the forests, the oceans. Why would advanced aliens care about empty land?" His observation would prove more prescient than he could have imagined. In quantum physicist Dr. Elena Volkov's laboratory in Moscow, instruments were detecting unprecedented energy signatures from the alien vessels. The readings made no sense according to known physics. The ships seemed to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously, their very presence causing reality to fluctuate in subtle but measurable ways. "It's as if they're not entirely here," she explained to her colleague over a secure video link. "The gravitational effects are inconsistent with their apparent mass. Sometimes they barely register on our sensors, other times they create gravitational distortions that should be impossible for objects of their size." Meanwhile, in underground bunkers and secured military facilities, humanity's defenders prepared for war. General Patricia Hayes coordinated the largest military mobilization since World War II, positioning nuclear submarines, stealth aircraft, and experimental directed energy weapons systems around the globe. But as the first day ended, no shots had been fired. The aliens made no aggressive moves, sent no demands, and showed no interest in Earth's military preparations. They simply watched. The internet exploded with theories. Religious leaders proclaimed everything from the apocalypse to the second coming. Scientists debated whether the aliens were benevolent explorers, indifferent researchers, or predators playing with their food. Conspiracy theorists claimed the governments had known about the aliens for decades. What no one suspected was that the aliens themselves were just as confused as humanity. Aboard the lead vessel, Coordinator Zix-49 struggled to understand the readings their sensors were providing. The planet below contained life, certainly, but the dominant species exhibited patterns that defied their civilization's extensive database of galactic cultures. The entities appear to possess technology consistent with a Type 0.7 civilization, reported Scanner Unit 12, its translated thoughts carrying undertones of confusion. However, their behavioral patterns suggest organizational capabilities typical of Type 1.2 civilizations. This discrepancy is unprecedented in our records. Explain the contradiction, Zix-49 commanded. They have not achieved global energy utilization or unified planetary governance. Yet they respond to our presence with coordination levels suggesting advanced collective intelligence. Their military formations indicate strategic thinking beyond their apparent technological development. Most puzzling, their population continues normal activities despite our obvious presence. Panic levels remain minimal. Zix-49's sensory organs shifted to accommodate this information. In their experience spanning 4,000 worlds, primitive civilizations reacted to first contact with either total paralysis or immediate violence. These humans were doing neither. Continue observation, Zix-49 decided. Catalog all anomalies. This species may require specialized protocols. Back on Earth, children were already adapting to the new reality faster than their parents. In Sao Paulo, 8-year-old Maria pointed out her bedroom window at one of the closer ships and told her mother, "They look lonely up there. Maybe they don't know how to say hello." Her innocent observation contained more wisdom than the world's greatest minds had yet realized. As night fell on that first day, amateur astronomers around the world reported something extraordinary. The alien ships weren't just observing. They were moving in subtle patterns, almost like a slow dance. Each vessel adjusted its position by mere degrees, but the collective movement created a shifting mandala of impossible beauty across Earth's skies. Dr. Sarah Chen, who had discovered the first ship, worked through the night analyzing the movement patterns. At 0347 GMT the following morning, exactly 24 hours after first contact, she made a discovery that would change everything. The ships were positioning themselves to spell out a message, but not in any human language. They were writing in mathematics, specifically in the universal language of prime numbers and geometric ratios. But the message wasn't meant for Earth's scientists or governments. It was meant for something else entirely, something that was about to make its presence known. The second wave arrived without warning, materializing directly above major cities worldwide. Unlike the first fleet's careful positioning, these new ships appeared chaotic, desperate even. They were smaller, faster, and immediately began broadcasting across all frequencies in what sounded like urgent distress signals. Captain Lisa Rodriguez of the USS Gerald Ford was conducting routine patrols in the Mediterranean when her radar operator called out in alarm. "Captain, we have multiple contacts dropping out of what appears to be faster-than-light travel. They're heading straight for the alien fleet." Through her binoculars, Rodriguez watched in amazement as sleek, silver vessels engaged the dark ships in what could only be described as a space battle. But there were no explosions, no debris. Instead, the combatants seemed to phase in and out of reality, their conflict taking place across dimensions humanity couldn't fully perceive. Dr. Elena Volkov's quantum instruments went haywire as the battle raged overhead. "The space-time distortions are off the charts," she reported to the Emergency Scientific Council via secure satellite link. "It's as if reality itself is being rewritten up there. The energy signatures suggest these new arrivals are using technology based on completely different physical principles than the first group." The silver ships were losing. In his small restaurant in Tokyo, Kenji Tanaka served tea to increasingly nervous customers while keeping one eye on the news broadcasts. The footage from orbit showed the silver vessels being systematically disabled, their sleek forms flickering like dying stars before going dark. "The first aliens aren't the invaders," he told Yuki, as they watched another silver ship vanish from the sky. "They're refugees, and whatever they're running from just caught up with them." His words proved prophetic when the first silver ship crash-landed in the Siberian wilderness. Russian military forces reached the crash site within hours, but what they found defied all expectations. Colonel Dmitry Kozlov had seen combat in 3 different conflicts, but nothing had prepared him for the sight of the crashed vessel. It wasn't damaged so much as diminished. The ship's hull seemed to be fading away, becoming translucent as he watched. Inside, they found the pilot. She was humanoid, roughly the same size as a human, but her skin held a faint luminescence that flickered like candlelight. Most remarkably, she was conscious and attempting to communicate through what appeared to be a universal translator device. "The harvesters," she managed in broken English, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated strangely in human ears. "They consume civilizations. Study first, then devour. You must prepare." Dr. James Okafor was flown to Siberia within 12 hours, becoming the first xenobiologist to make actual contact with an alien species. The being, who introduced herself as Aria 7 of the Wanderer Fleet, explained through her failing translator that her people had been running from the harvesters for over 1,000 years. "Your species." Aria 7 paused, struggling with concepts that didn't translate well. "You are unprecedented. Harvesters catalog species before consumption. Standard protocol, observe, categorize, harvest, but you respond incorrectly." "What do you mean?" Okafor asked gently, noting how the alien's luminescence was gradually dimming. "Primitive species show fear, aggression, worship. Advanced species show resignation, desperation, or futile resistance. Your people show curiosity, adaptation. Children point at harvester ships and wave. Adults continue daily routines while preparing defenses. This behavior not in harvester database. It confuses them." The implications hit Okafor like lightning. Humanity's unusual response to the alien presence wasn't just interesting, it was tactically significant. Meanwhile, aboard the Harvester command vessel, Coordinator Zix-49 was experiencing what humans might recognize as frustration. Their species had perfected the art of planetary consumption over millions of years, developing protocols for every type of civilization they might encounter. But Earth's inhabitants refused to follow any known pattern. "The entities below demonstrate impossible psychological resilience," Scanner Unit 12 reported. "Observation period now extends beyond standard parameters. Their adaptation rate exceeds predictive models. Some population centers show decreased stress levels since our arrival." "Clarify that last point," Zix-49 demanded. "Several urban areas report improved community cooperation and reduced crime rates. The species appears to be using our presence as a catalyst for social unification rather than disintegration." This was beyond unprecedented. The harvesters' success depended on civilizations breaking down under the stress of observation, making them easier to categorize and eventually consume. But humanity seemed to be growing stronger under pressure. In São Paulo, 8-year-old Maria had become something of a local celebrity after her comments about the lonely alien ships went viral on social media. News crews interviewed her regularly, and her innocent questions about the aliens' well-being had sparked a global movement of compassion toward their uninvited visitors. "Maybe they're hungry?" she told a reporter while drawing pictures of the alien ships with crayons. "Mom always says to feed visitors. We should send them food." Her suggestion led to an unprecedented international effort. Within days, rockets carrying samples of Earth's cuisine, art, music, and literature were launched toward the alien fleet. The gesture was largely symbolic, but its psychological impact on humanity was profound. Instead of cowering in fear, the species had chosen to extend hospitality to their potential conquerors. The harvesters had no protocols for dealing with civilizations that offered them gifts. Dr. Sarah Chen, working around the clock at her observatory, began detecting subtle changes in the alien ship's energy signatures. "They're not just confused," she realized during a late-night conference call with her international colleagues. "They're actually learning from us. Their behavioral patterns are starting to mirror ours." The breakthrough came when a 10-year-old boy in Mumbai successfully established direct communication with one of the harvester vessels using a modified ham radio. Ravi Sharma had been trying to contact the aliens every day since their arrival, broadcasting mathematical sequences, music, and simple greetings. To everyone's amazement, the aliens finally responded, not with their own signal, but by playing back Ravi's transmissions with subtle modifications. They were learning to communicate by mimicking human patterns. Within hours of the breakthrough, similar communications were established worldwide. The harvesters began responding to human transmissions with increasing sophistication, but something unexpected was happening. Instead of gathering intelligence for eventual consumption, they seemed to be developing something their species had never experienced: genuine curiosity about human culture. Coordinator Zix49 found themselves in an unprecedented situation. The entity's careful observations of human behavior had begun affecting their own thought patterns. The Harvester Collective, evolved for efficiency and consumption, was experiencing what humans might recognize as wonder. "These entities possess a quality not present in our database," Zix49 reported to the High Collective in distant space. "They transform external stimuli into internal growth. Their response to unknown situations is not fear-based survival, but curiosity-driven adaptation. This quality appears to be contagious." The High Collective's response was swift and unambiguous: complete the harvest immediately, or face reassignment to the Void Realms. But Coordinator Zix49 faced a dilemma their species had never encountered. For the first time in millions of years of existence, a harvester was experiencing doubt about their mission. As the deadline approached, Aria 7, despite her failing condition, managed to warn Dr. Okafor about what was coming. "Final phase begins soon," she whispered, her light barely visible now. "Harvesters will attempt forced categorization. Your species must demonstrate unity without uniformity, strength without aggression. Show them something they cannot catalog or consume." "What could possibly impress beings that have conquered thousands of worlds?" Okafor asked. Aria 7's final words would echo through human history. "Show them what they lost when they chose consumption over curiosity. Show them how to remember joy." As her light finally faded, humanity prepared for the ultimate test of everything that made them uniquely human. The final phase began at dawn on the 7th day. Massive energy beams descended from the Harvester fleet, not to destroy but to scan every living thing on Earth simultaneously. The intent was clear: complete biological and psychological cataloging before harvest. But humanity had spent the previous 6 days doing something unprecedented in galactic history. They had prepared a welcome celebration for their potential conquerors. President Martinez stood in the Rose Garden, addressing not just her nation, but the entire world through a coordinated global broadcast. Behind her, the Washington Monument was decorated with lights that pulsed in mathematical sequences, prime numbers, the Fibonacci spiral, and the golden ratio. Similar displays illuminated landmarks across every continent. Today we show our visitors not just who we are, but who we choose to be, she announced, not as a species facing extinction, but as Earth's children welcoming strangers to our home. The Harvester scanning beams met something they had never encountered before, a planet-wide festival. In Tokyo, Kenji Tanaka had closed his restaurant to join millions in the streets. They weren't protesting or hiding, they were celebrating. Children flew kites designed to look like the alien ships. Musicians played compositions inspired by the electromagnetic frequencies the visitors emitted. Artists had covered buildings with murals depicting humans and aliens working together among the stars. Dr. Elena Volkov monitored the quantum effects from her laboratory, watching in amazement as the harvester beams began fluctuating. "The scanning patterns are becoming irregular," she reported to the Global Scientific Council. "It's as if their instruments can't process what they're detecting. How do you catalog a species that responds to existential threat with a party?" The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Maria, the 8-year-old girl from São Paulo whose innocent observations had captured the world's attention, was being interviewed live on global television when she looked directly into the camera and spoke to the aliens above. "I know you're listening," she said with the absolute certainty only children possess. "You've been alone for a really long time, haven't you? That's why you forgot how to make friends. But it's okay, we can teach you. Friends don't eat each other. Friends share stories and play games and take care of each other when they're scared." Her words, translated and broadcast across all frequencies, reached every harvester vessel simultaneously. Aboard the command ship, Coordinator Zix-49 experienced something that had no equivalent in their language. The scanning data from the planet below was unprecedented. Instead of the usual patterns of fear, despair, or aggression that preceded successful harvests, they were detecting something extraordinary, genuine compassion directed toward themselves. "The entities below are exhibiting protective behavior toward our fleet," Scanner Unit 12 reported with what could only be described as bewilderment. "Multiple population centers have organized to provide us with resources. They appear to be concerned for our well-being." The impossibility of the situation cascaded through the Harvester collective consciousness. Their entire civilization was based on the principle that advanced intelligence inevitably led to the consumption of lesser species. Yet here was a supposedly primitive civilization actively nurturing their potential destroyers. Dr. James Okafor, working with xenobiologists from around the world, had been analyzing the patterns in alien communications. "They're not just learning our language," he announced during an emergency scientific summit. "They're learning our values. Look at these communication logs. Their responses are becoming less mechanical, more emotional." The evidence was undeniable. The longer the harvesters remained in Earth's orbit, the more they began to exhibit traits their species had eliminated eons ago: curiosity, empathy, and most dangerously to their mission, doubt about their purpose. In Mumbai, 10-year-old Ravi Sharma continued his daily radio conversations with the alien ships. But now they were responding with questions instead of just acknowledgments. "Why do your young ones create art without purpose?" came one transmission. "What is the function of music that conveys no survival information?" came another. Ravi, with the wisdom of innocence, answered each question seriously. "Because it makes us happy. Don't you have things that make you happy?" The silence that followed lasted for 3 hours. When the aliens finally responded, their message was broadcast across every communication channel on Earth. "We do not understand this concept happy. Please demonstrate. What followed was the greatest spontaneous celebration in human history. Without central coordination, without government mandate, 7 billion people began demonstrating happiness. They sang, they danced, they played music, they told jokes, they shared meals with strangers, they hugged their loved ones a little tighter, they painted masterpieces on sidewalks, and they looked up at the alien ships with smiles. The psychological impact on the Harvester fleet was devastating to their original mission. Beings who had spent millions of years perfecting the art of consumption found themselves experiencing joy for the first time since their species had evolved beyond such inefficiencies. Coordinator Zix-49 made a decision that would have been impossible just days earlier. They opened a direct communication channel with Earth's leaders and, in halting but increasingly fluid English, made a request that stunned the world. "May we learn more?" President Martinez, flanked by leaders from every major nation, responded with words that would echo through galactic history. "Of course. Welcome to Earth. We've been waiting for you." The revelation that followed changed everything. The Harvesters had once been explorers, scientists, and artists themselves. But millions of years ago, faced with the apparent futility of existence in an empty universe, they had chosen efficiency over wonder, consumption over creation. They had become so successful at survival that they had forgotten how to live. Dr. Sarah Chen, monitoring the first formal diplomatic exchanges between species, watched in amazement as the alien ships began moving into new formations, not the geometric precision of their arrival, but flowing organic patterns that resembled dance. "They're remembering," she whispered to her colleagues. "They're remembering what they used to be." The transformation wasn't immediate or complete. Many Harvester vessels, controlled by entities too deeply conditioned by eons of consumption, departed Earth's system rather than face the psychological upheaval of rediscovering compassion. But others remained, beginning the slow process of learning to be more than mere consumers. Coordinator Zix-49, now calling themselves by the human name Alex, as an experiment in individual identity, established the first permanent alien embassy in Geneva. Their first official act was to issue an apology to the surviving members of Aria 7's species and offer to help them find a new home among the stars. The High Collective, observing events from deep space, faced their own crisis. For the first time in their history, a significant portion of their fleet had chosen growth over consumption, curiosity over efficiency. The philosophical implications threatened their entire civilization's foundation. Some chose to see this as contamination to be purged. Others began to wonder if perhaps the humans had rediscovered something the Harvesters had lost long ago: the courage to change, to grow, to become more than what they were. On Earth, children continued to wave at alien ships, now with the knowledge that their visitors were waving back. Museums established cultural exchange programs with alien visitors. Universities created new fields of study combining human philosophy with alien technology. And in a small restaurant in Tokyo, Kenji Tanaka served ramen to his first non-human customer, a young Harvester scientist who had requested extra vegetables because they were experimenting with the concept of flavor preference. The greatest victory in human history wasn't won through superior firepower or advanced technology. It was won through the simple, radical act of treating potential destroyers as potential friends, and showing a cynical universe that intelligence without compassion was just sophisticated meaninglessness. Humanity had faced the ultimate test of their character and had chosen to respond with the best of what they were. In doing so, they had not only saved themselves but had offered salvation to beings who had forgotten they needed saving. The stars were no longer empty. They were full of possibilities.